Reddit, what is a weird childhood memory you have that you don't know whether it's true or not? My brother managed to get his head stuck in the scrollwork of an ironwood banister at a hotel, and in the ensuing panic I wandered off to this wonderful place where there was a table full of cookies and candy. As I'm eating the cookies and the candy and whatever I can find, some really angry adult yells at me, picks me up and carries me out of this amazing room filled with sweets. I was about 3 or 4 years old. I think I crashed a wedding or a bar mitzvah's dessert table while my brother was being extracted from the banister. It was amazing. My parents claim it never happened. That, when I was about 10, I was at my auntie and uncle's house in Sydney for Christmas, and my cousin, who's a hairdresser, perfectly straightened my crazily curly long hair, which takes over an hour. One of my presents that morning was new pajamas, and I put them on and went to walk out into the garden to show my mum my new pajamas and tripped and fell into their pool, soaking my new PJs and ruining my perfectly straight hair, to my cousin's dismay. I literally have such a vivid memory of it happening, but I brought it up to my mum once and she doesn't remember it, so I have always questioned myself. I clearly remember my mom telling me as a kid that if I put vegetables in the freezer, they turn into ice cream. I told her now years later how it was a funny joke, but she swears she has never said it. I hate when you remember something so clearly and the other person says they never said it. I stepped on a roofing nail and got a huge hole in my foot that I had to soak nightly for a month. My mom said it didn't happen, but my dad and sister say it did happen. One time, when I was about 8, we were at a relative's cabin and I went to go tell my dad it was lunchtime, when I saw him standing stock still in the river. I called out to him and he just slowly motioned for me to be quiet. I watched him standing there, looking into the water for maybe a full minute before he lurched into the water and snatched up an enormous carp. I just watched my dad hold on to this giant, glistening carp for several seconds before he threw it back into the river and waded out of the river like nothing happened. He didn't say anything about it when we got back to the cabin and we've never talked about it. I could ask him about it now, I suppose, but there's something magical or surreal about the fact that it was never spoken of again. I remember when I was a child there was this fountain in my city that had some kind of spikes at the bottom, some elements of a construction, and I vaguely remember that once my mom and I were passing by the fountain and there was no water in it, but there was a man lying there in a puddle of blood, pierced by the spikes as if he had fallen on them accidentally, and my mom was like, "Oh, let's go, let's go." Now, I asked her about it when I got older and she said what, this never happened. I guess she wouldn't lie about it, and it's not something she'd just forget, so maybe it never happened. Indeed, not sure why I remember this though. A crow once grabbed a cookie from my hand and flew away. I'm sure it has happened, but I doubt it sometimes. I had a seagull in Brighton steal my bag of Monster Munch. I never quite got over it. I vividly remember going to see my dad in hospital after he had been in a car accident. I remember the bruises on his chest from the seat belt and his old school hairstyle. He had a hip to ankle cast as he had broken his leg in 3 places, and I remember that leg wasn't covered by the blanket so I could see the cast. My mum was actually pregnant with me when this happened, so there's no chance I could remember it. However, I'm convinced my mum has got her dates wrong. I remember playing in the living room while the house was still being built with my siblings. My mother told me she was pregnant with me when my siblings played there. I woke up from a bad dream and went to go sleep with my parents. On the way to their bedroom I had to pass the front door, which had a big window next to it. 2 guys were trying to break in, and when they saw me, they knocked on the window to get my attention and motioned for me to unlock the door. My mom said it was a dream. But to this day, the image of those 2 guys at our front window is as real as any childhood memory I have. This happened over 40 years ago. I remember having dinner with my mom and brother and glancing at the front door. There was a man in a ball cap watching us, and when he saw me look he walked away. It freaked me right out, but my mom never believed it. I had a dream where I punched my friend because he wouldn't stop talking about trains. I asked my friend years later if it was true and he said I actually did it. But I remember waking up from it. I have no idea what to believe. Grown-up children of YouTube, what is your questionable memory? Share all the crazy stories and don't forget to subscribe.